lot of emails about the Oregon cheerleaders. People thought the Oregon cheerleaders.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Sorry, I just realized because I was actually watching with my wife there. I'm like, trying not to stare at the TV too hard.
You just can't be honest. You just can't say, honey, the Oregon cheerleaders are really hot.
Very colorful uniform.
Oh, you can do that? I could do that. Can you guys do that?
No, I could get away with a little bit. I could say something like, I like the colorful uniforms the girls have.
Right.
And she knows that means something a little more than that.
You have to be very careful, McLovin. Consider your wife just gave birth in the last handful of months.
How long is she going to use that, though? It's been like 4 or 5 months, right?
No, that's a year good for a year on
Really?
that one. Oh, yeah. I have a 6-month-old. Yeah, you don't,
I have a 2-year-old, so I'm clear.
You're clear now. You're out of
out of the woods.
You're out of the woods.
So Seton's son turns 1 today. He can now go back to being his normal self
Ooh.
in year 2.
Wow, interesting.
Ooh.
You're back, Seton.
I'm back.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm really back, though.
Get a 6-pack of beer.
I don't need to know that I need to be talking about young co-eds and like, hey,
That's
honey,
tough.
look at these cheerleaders.
Could you just blurt out, I love my ducks? Could you say something like that? Would that get in trouble? And something could be inferred, but you're not really saying, wow, that one's hot or something like that. You're just saying you love your ducks.
With the boss in Arizona for the BCS championship, Kevin Frazier took over the man cave.
I'm having a great time so far on my Mancation. That's what I'm calling it. It's not a vacation, but a Mancation. You know the funny thing? It doesn't take us 36 days here to get things ready. I mean, we can prepare overnight. 36 days, but we finally, actually now 37, we finally have a national champion. And you know what? I don't know if it was the game that everyone expected. Everyone wanted to see fireworks between Oregon and Auburn. Instead, we saw a defensive struggle. No points in the first quarter, and the Danettes all here. Paulie, Fritzy, McLovin, Seton, and you guys checked out the national championship game. Did you get what you wanted after you watched that game? And that's the thing I want to ask everyone out there. At the end of the day, did you get what you wanted? And Fritzy, I'm going to ask you first.
How could you not? It comes down to the wire like that in overtime. It started off a little shaky. My biggest surprise was I thought there'd be a lot more offense early. You start seeing all those interceptions. Started off a little sloppy. But to me, for it to go down to the wire like that, you saw a little 2-point conversion play, a little razzle-dazzle, a couple of trick plays here and there. But to go to overtime and see a winning kick in OT, I don't think it gets much better than that for a national championship game.
And I think that's a great point because what we remember and what we take away from that game is the greatness of the finish. You remember Vince Young in that final play against USC. I don't know if you remember Colt McCoy getting knocked out of the game. And or maybe that's all you remember from the national championship game. I was there when Texas lost in the Rose Bowl, and, I'm watching the game, and I'm like, can Colt McCoy go back in? I don't want to see Gilbert at quarterback. I want to see Colt McCoy. And I was amongst Texas fans and a bunch of celebs. I was killing Michael Clark Duncan the whole game because he came there as a Texas fan, and I wanted to throw stuff at him and hit him in the head. And, Texas just could never muster anything, and all the Texas fans were so upset because they're like, we want to see our team at their best. You felt like once it got later in the game and the teams had kind of settled down, you saw them at their best, and you saw something that made that game memorable. McLovin, did you get what you wanted from the game?
Yes, I did. I was just curious to see what kind of pros Cam Newton and Nick Fairley were going to be. Newton mixed. The tackle is very good.
Nick Fairley is a beast, and that's what we learned also last night, that he's a man. I mean, there were times that Oregon decided, hey, you know what? We're going to leave him unblocked, and we're going to read off him.
Sometimes they didn't decide to leave him unblocked, and he got through anyway.
And, I was listening to the game, and you hear the announcer say, oh, well, Darren Thomas read wrong. If a guy who is over 300 pounds and is that fast is coming at you, you're going to make some wrong reads sometimes. Nick Fairley's a man. He's going to do very well when he plays on Sundays in the NFL. You just don't play chicken with that kind of guy, because when he's coming at you, the first thing you think about is your life. Then you think about the option of where the ball should go. But you think about your life. Seton, did you get what you wanted from the game?
I did. I expected a lot more offense, but as I was watching the game, I really like Oregon's offense, but it seemed cute last night in the face of Auburn, where you just, as you're saying, you had these men, just absolute beasts there, and these sort of little trick plays, and everybody's cut in different ways. I didn't see them being able to. I'm surprised the game stayed as close as it did.
Yeah, that's funny you said that because that's one of the notes I made in the first quarter as I was watching the game is men, the size. And you look at it and you saw the defense, when you saw the defensive line for Oregon against the offensive line for Auburn, you were like, whoa, bring in the big boys. Bring in the big boys. Now, my father coached black college basketball. He coached at a place called Morgan State, and every Christmas we would go off to play a lot of big schools to raise money for the athletic department because you get paid when you play those big games. But also, you find out that no matter how well drilled your team is, it comes down to size. Size matters. And that mattered when we go up against, say, a team like a North Carolina or a Missouri or someone like that, and they're 6'10" across the back line. You can run the cutest plays in the world. You can run the heck out of your offense, and you're going to get a few baskets early, but by 10 minutes in the second half, you look at your guys and they're exhausted. When you're 6'7" and you're pushing a guy who's 6'10", 325, who's built like a man, you're beat up, and there's nothing you can do. And I thought that's what happened. Oregon just ran out of steam. They couldn't push those guys around anymore. And Auburn, Cam Newton just falls forward. Michael Dyer falls forward. They fall forward. When they run, they fall forward, and it just wears on you. So I can't say enough about, it was a great season. Chip Kelly is brilliant, but Auburn had size, and size matters. Did you get what you wanted out of it, Paulie?
I did. What I think is fascinating about watching Oregon at the start, and they even fool the cameramen sometimes. It's almost like hockey. You got to find the puck. You got to find the football with Oregon's offense. You don't know, like that one screen pass at the goal line to James.
Yeah.
It fooled everybody, including the cameramen.
And it was a great setup. It was great play calling because they ran that little sprint out with Darren Thomas 2 or 3 times where, he's dumping it off in the flats, and then they run what looks like the same play, except LaMichael James sneaks out the other side.
I thought what was really good by Auburn was the defense, not just Fairley in the defensive line, but Washington and Etheridge, the defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
They stepped it up because they had some tough games this year. Like, I think Arkansas, they got roughed up, and then they got back in at the end, the defensive backs. But Washington and Etheridge for Auburn, I thought, not players of the game, but stepped up a lot.
Well, and there was some talk that would they get picked on, and could they handle the heat that was coming their way? And here's the thing. At the end of the day, I also thought, great point made by Lou Holtz after the game. Auburn played 6 teams in the top 20, and they played a schedule, and they came from behind against several of those teams, but they played a schedule, as folks like to say, in the SEC, you play a tough team every week. They played a schedule that was tough, and it showed up in the national championship game. Here, let's listen to it. Here's how it sounded at the end, the winning field goal for the Auburn Tigers, and how they won the national championship.
Byram waits for the snap in the place. There it is. The kick is up. The kick is good. Auburn wins. 22-19.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
And now, here in the desert, Auburn's journey is complete. 53 years of waiting, of hoping, of dreaming, of coming so close. It's all over. The Auburn Tigers are on top of the college football world, and the view from up here is sheer perfection.
The call from the Auburn Sports Network as Wes Byram kicked that 19-yard field goal to win the game 22-19. And when you hear that, you hear the joy in the announcer's voice also, because when you're a local announcer, you live and die with the team. That's your team. And so if they lose, you're out. You're done. You're going home. But when they win, you, of course, share in the spoils, Paulie.
Kevin, you've done play-by-play, stuff like that. You call games. Do you think you're nervous as an announcer? You know this is the biggest call of your life as an Auburn announcer. Moments forward, do you like plan out what you're going to say, or you just cut loose, do you think?
You know what's funny is, look, I'm not a play-by-play guy. I'm bad at it. You got to sometimes know what you're good at and what you're bad at. I'm bad at play-by-play. But
do you mean like badass or just bad?
No, bad. You got to say, hey, sometimes you got to know your place. Can you shoot the long-range jumper? Then shoot the long-range jumper. If you're a rebounder, rebound. I'm not a play-by-play guy. But the thing that I would say is I asked Al Michaels about that because I saw him and he was being honored, and we were talking about the Miracle on Ice. And he said, the call at the end of that game, do you believe in miracles? It came to him. He didn't plan that. I think sometimes you can tell when guys plan it because it comes out so perfect. It comes out, you're like, you hear the call and you're like, did he write, does he have a list like Fritzy has his lists, By the way, and we're gonna get to Fritzy's headlines too in a few moments. But how planned out was it? But that was a genuine moment, and it sounded like a genuine moment. By the way, here's Gene Chizik at the game, and I think Gene Chizik today is walking around like how you like me now. But let's listen to him after the game.
I think it was our coaches, our players, a sense of chemistry of our team that I've never seen before. Today, I can tell you this: we're the best football team in the United States of America, and War Eagle.
Now, keep in mind, he's handling it in a very classy way right now, and I respect that because when he came from Iowa State and was 5-19 and hired in December of 2008 to replace Tommy Tuberville, people hated him. People hated the hire. He took a lot of heat, and people thought our program has now just gone down the toilet. They thought that they got the wrong guy. I remember Charles Barkley and other folks. They were so upset. And so this morning, there has to be something in the back of Gene Chizik's mind when he gets up and he's like, how you like me now? It's almost like Kool Moe Dee should call him and just say, I got a theme song for you. Rent it for a year. Rent it for a year. And at the parade, and when they're all, they're patting you on the back and they're sending cakes and pies to the house and they're kissing your wife on the cheek, how you like me now?
So the White Sox brought Steve Perry back for their parade. You say Kool Moe Dee shows up at the Auburn parade?
He should lead the Auburn parade and stand right next to Gene Chizik. How you like me now? Look at him. Just look over him. How you like me now? It's almost like there should be an all-in T-shirt. There we go. It's pretty clean. See, throw that up there for a second. Do we got it? Oh, there we go.
How you like me now?
Yeah. Just play a little bit of it at the parade. Or Gene should have, when you walk in his office, or maybe it should be his ringtone.
Should Gene have a Kangol on when he comes to the parade? Because he's got a Kangol Kool Moe Dee on that cover.
I don't know if he needs the Kangol because he has a ring. He has a ring that's pretty doggone big, and he could turn it into a 5-finger ring. But the point is that at this point, maybe just make it your ringtone so it's subtle. So when you're sitting there with the president or the boosters, you're at a meeting and your phone goes off, and it's like, what's that? He's like, oh, that's my ringtone. How you like me now? and by the way, the new contract's coming. You know that. And that and the new contract are going to be fantastic. Now, guys, what's our poll question today? Because I know, Paulie, you and McLovin are you're debating about what the poll question should be.
Well, we're going to pitch ours, and you can decide.
What's yours, Paulie?
Who should stay, Cam Newton at Auburn or Les Miles at LSU? Who should stay?
And we will get into Les Miles a little later in the show because a lot of speculation that whether or not he will go to Michigan. McLovin, what's yours?
Did the BCS have a good year?
I love that question because here's the thing. I think that Cam Newton is going. There's no reason for Cam Newton to stay so that some journalists can make their name off of digging something up on Cam Newton and his dad. Because right now, as it stands, he's done what he came to Auburn to do. He resurrected the program, won a national championship. Get out of there because all he can do next year is have guys follow him around, dig in his father's bank receipts. Because for some newspaper journalist who's just assigned to that job, and I'm not knocking anybody that is assigned to that job, but what I'm saying is that someone can make their name off of that story. He's a target now. Go get paid for real. And I'm not saying he's getting paid, but I'm saying you can get paid in the NFL. I don't want anybody to say, oh, Kevin Frazier said that Cam Newton's getting paid. What I'm saying is go and get paid in the NFL, and he will get paid in the NFL for all those people who think he won't do well in the NFL. And